We are now coming to a decisive step on the spiritual path. So far, you have viewed your existence on the material level as the one and only reality. You had merely a vague idea of the life of the soul in its world. You have to change this attitude radically and turn it into its opposite. If your soul is your real self, that means necessarily the life of your soul in its world is your real existence. Let us hear one of the most beautiful paragraphs of Agni Yoga, which you should call to mind every day when walking the path of the interior temple. Whence comes this stimulating feeling called joy of being? Why does this joy not depend upon wealth or self-satisfaction? It may arise amidst the most grievous difficulties and persecutions. In times of stress, such a joy is especially valuable and healing. We call it joy of being, for it does not depend on personal circumstances, success, or benefits. Can there be feelings of joy when one is afflicted with disease, or when one is the victim of injustice or insult? Indeed, for even in such circumstances, the eyes may sometimes fill with fire, the bowed head may rise, and new strength may stream in. Then one begins to rejoice at life, perhaps not at one's earthly life, but at the real existence. What does the Master mean by real existence? Yes, here we are, at the core of our topic. I need not explain in detail, you know yourself from bitter experience. For your perishable personality, there is not much to laugh about on earth. Obstacles and difficulties, need, pain and suffering pile up before you every day in abundance. However, this does not apply to your soul. As we have already discussed several times, it can always be happy, because it regards difficulties as nothing but opportunities for spiritual growth, as necessary stages on the ladder of ascent. The real existence of which the Mahatma speaks is the life of the soul in its world, in a sanctuary, in a sphere of eternal joy, eternal tranquility, and eternal peace, which does not exist on the material level. So far, you used to think your real existence is your life as a baker, a father of a family, or a nurse, which takes place at home or at your place of work. From today on, you get used to regarding your spiritual life on the supermundane plane in the interior temple as your real existence. Your kingdom is not of this world. It is to be found, so to speak, above the clouds. This supratemporal or inner world is much more important than the external circumstances. Often people complain about the monotony of their external life. But any external life, whatever, depends upon the riches of the inner life. The external life is but 100th part of the inner. Therefore, the inner life is the true one. The outer world is a mere reflection of the inner one. How do I put that into practice in everyday life? Create a subtle reality, a real existence around you that looks like this. You are the monk of an inner monastery. Whomever you meet, he visits you in your sanctuary. You take an attitude towards him as towards a seeker who asks you for advice or help. This is how you realize the existence on a higher level. This is how you act from a superior spiritual perspective, while at the same time staying on earth. The path of the interior temple is not a glass bead game, but part of the education of the new man. For what is the man of the future, of the next higher level of evolution? A higher form of life, a being of spirit that comes to earth from another, a higher world. One must understand in what lies the progress of a spirit who is gradually becoming accustomed to existing above the world and to labor without end. You are a heaven dweller because your true home is a sacred place in the other world. You descend to the material level like an angel to help your smaller brothers and sisters to pass on higher knowledge and to improve their conditions. Though in our days an angel is no longer a cute putto, but a powerful fighter. It is essential that you create this consciousness of your higher existence anew every morning and start the day on the heights, in the real world, in your heaven, and not down below in the material lowlands. And that you maintain yourself up there in spirit, even when you descend in the body. When the consciousness has assimilated the foundations of the teaching of life, all that takes place with us and around us inevitably takes on another meaning. The broadened consciousness carries over the starting point of the thinking into the supermundane plane and unites with the consciousness of the elder brothers of our humanity. Such a consciousness learns to live in its true home and knows in spirit and heart its friends and helpers. Building an inner temple is the first step in forming your real supermundane existence. The very high yogis live in different conditions, created by them, far from our earthly hustle and bustle. All this is again very elitist. How does the supermundane existence as an angelic being get real and come to life for an average citizen of flesh and blood like me? By being in meditation in constant communion with your supermundane home and your soulmates there, by educating your eternal individuality, letting it grow and spiritualizing it to such an extent that you actually become angelic. And by acting as a representative or ambassador in the name, on behalf, and in the service of the heavenly powers on earth. And, above all, of course, by walking the path of the interior temple, that is, visiting your heavenly home regularly or even living there permanently. Saint Catherine of Siena was a founder and trailblazer for the concept of the monastery within. If you are looking for a living example, for a role model for this way of life, study her life. Note her advice. This sentence is one of the most beautiful and most important that has ever been said on our subject. Create for yourself a cell in your heart and never leave it. Her confessor and biographer, Saint Raymond of Capua, describes her. She listened to the Holy Spirit, who taught her to set up a silent chamber in her spirit that she should never leave because of external work. Before, when she had had a room with 4 walls, she had sometimes been in it, sometimes she had gone out of it. But now that she was hiding a corner inside her that nobody could steal, she always stayed there. The holy young woman prepared this room that cannot be built by hand. She was helped by the one for whose sake she had given up her external stone-built room without hesitation. By the way, Catherine of Siena was an incarnation of Helena Röhrig. Saint Teresa of Avila has written an entire book on our subject with the title The Interior Castle. Brother Lawrence, whom we got to know already in the broadcasting, living in the continuous presence of the teacher, and Saint John of the Cross, advise to create a chamber of prayer within the heart. Raise your heart to God as often as you can, even at meals and in company. He is closer to us than we think. It is not necessary to always be in the church in order to commune with God. We can prepare a chamber of prayer in our hearts, to which we may withdraw from time to time, in order to have a friendly, humble, and loving conversation with Him. Everyone is capable of such confidential conversations with God, some more, some less. Do we really have to talk about the benefit of living in paradise? Well, it is important to make sure that we are aware of what exactly is the goal of our exercise. You combine the two seemingly incompatible demands of Agni Yoga. Do not withdraw from life and still do not cling to the earthly existence. Outwardly, you are living in the middle of the turmoil of the world. Inwardly, in the peace of heaven. The path of the interior temple enables you to conduct a pure, holy existence in the middle of everyday life. One of my favorite terms of the teaching is transfiguration. It means you may completely transform yourself, your life, and your entire environment, and this solely with the power of your spirit. We had already discussed you may transfigure your property by managing it in trust, in the name and on behalf of the hierarchy, and employing it selflessly in the interest of the common good. You may transfigure the many obstacles, adversities, hardships, and sufferings of everyday life by turning them into joy. The path of the interior temple is another example for the transfiguration of life, solely through a proper mental attitude. You are living in a paradise. Without that, the external circumstances of your existence change in any way. What you change is your consciousness, your attitude with which you are facing people and circumstances. You transfigure the physical world by crowning it with the subtle superstructure of a sanctuary. Everywhere on earth, even in Shambhala, you have to do the laundry, cook food, clean and maintain the house, and make a living. It is an honor and a pleasure to be able to attend to all these material needs in the sublime atmosphere of a sanctuary. The following was said about Saint Catherine of Siena. When she was busy in the kitchen or serving the food, she was always dwelling within the most sacred. The transfigured life is the real existence that we talked about earlier.